The Mafia heir kept losing weight and everyone blamed his premature body. But at 5:57, one rain-soaked Boston morning, Nurse Grace Holloway held his feeding bag to the light and saw the truth hiding beneath the label, a needle mark. Behind the glass, baby Noah Blackwell struggled for every breath while his father Roman stood powerless in a black suit that had terrified half the city. Maybe you know that feeling watching someone you love fade while the people in charge keep telling you to wait, trust them, and stop asking questions. This story is not only about poison betrayal or a ruthless man with everything to lose. It is about noticing what others ignore, finding courage under pressure, and protecting the innocent when silence feels safer. Stay until the final revelation, like the video and comment where you are watching from. 3 weeks before Grace Holloway held Noah Blackwell's feeding bag to the light, the night over Boston had been clear. The harbor reflected the city in ribbons of silver. Music drifted through the marble lobby of the Boston Harbor Hotel, where politicians, surgeons, investors, and men who never appeared in photographs raised crystal glasses beneath chandeliers. Roman Blackwell stood near the entrance with one hand resting at the center of his wife's back. Claire Blackwell was 8 months pregnant and tired of pretending she was not. "You have been watching the doors all night," she said. "I always watch the doors. You are at a charity dinner. I have enemies who donate to charity." Claire laughed and guided his hand to the place where their baby had begun to move. The kick was small but sharp. For half a second, the hard line of Roman's mouth disappeared. "He knows when you are tense," Claire said. "He has poor timing. He is a Blackwell." Roman kissed her temple. He had spent 12 years building a name that made entire rooms quieter. He controlled freight moving through sections of the harbor, private security contracts across the city, and businesses that looked legitimate until someone followed the money too closely. None of it mattered when Claire looked at him with that patient expression. "Come home with me," she said. "No meetings, no calls. Just one night where you remember you are a husband before you are a king." Roman glanced toward the line of black vehicles outside. His security chief, Daniel Cross, approached. "The second vehicle has an ignition problem. We are changing the order." Roman frowned. "Who checked it?" "2 of our men." Claire exhaled. "I'm going to the car. You can interrogate the engine after you tuck me into bed." She kissed his cheek and walked through the revolving door. Roman watched her cross the pavement. One of his men opened the rear door of the first vehicle. Claire placed a hand beneath her stomach as she stepped inside. Roman turned back to Daniel. "Find out who touched the ignition." The explosion swallowed the rest of his sentence. Light flashed against the hotel windows. The force lifted Roman from the ground and threw him through a display of winter flowers. Glass rained across the marble. For several seconds there was no sound. Then the world returned in pieces. Screaming. A car alarm. The crackle of fire. Roman pushed himself onto his hands. Blood ran from his forehead into his right eye. The vehicle at the curb was burning. Claire was inside it. He tried to stand. His left leg folded beneath him. He dragged himself across the broken glass anyway. "Claire!" Daniel grabbed him around the chest. Roman struck him hard enough to break his nose. "Let me go. The fuel tank could ignite. My wife is in there." 3 security men held him back as firefighters reached the vehicle. Someone tore open the damaged rear door. Smoke rolled out. Paramedics pulled Claire onto the pavement. Her dress was blackened. Blood covered her face and neck. She did not move. The city narrowed to her body beneath the emergency lights. A paramedic pressed 2 fingers to her throat. Another cut through the fabric over her abdomen. "There is a fetal heartbeat," someone shouted. The words did not make sense. Claire did not move. The ambulance doors slammed shut with Roman inside. He sat beside the stretcher while a paramedic worked over her. The child's heartbeat filled the vehicle through a portable monitor, fast and fragile. Roman held Claire's cold fingers. "You wanted one quiet night," he whispered. At St. Catherine Medical Center, a surgical team waited in the emergency bay. Claire disappeared behind double doors while Roman stood in the corridor with blood drying across his face and her wedding ring pressed into his palm. 23 minutes later, Dr. Miles Hale emerged. "The baby is alive," he said. "He was delivered at 31 weeks. He is extremely vulnerable, but he is breathing with assistance." Roman stared at him, and Claire Hale lowered his eyes. "We could not save her." A nurse passed the doorway carrying a clear transport incubator. Inside lay a child so small Roman could not understand how he was alive. The infant's skin was red and nearly transparent. A breathing tube covered half his face. Wires surrounded him like roots. Roman stepped closer. "That is your son," the nurse said. He touched the clear wall with 2 fingers. The baby moved one hand. Noah Roman whispered. Claire had chosen the name 2 months earlier. By sunrise, the 7th floor no longer felt like part of a public hospital. Roman's men occupied the elevator banks, stairwells, and service corridors. Every employee entering the neonatal unit showed identification twice. Deliveries were opened and inspected. The hospital administrator objected until Roman placed a signed donation agreement on the conference table. "My men stay out of treatment rooms," Roman said. "They keep strangers away from my son. Accept those terms or explain to your donors why procedure matters more than the life of a newborn." The administrator looked at the number in the agreement. No one argued again. The 7th floor became Roman's world. He slept on a leather sofa outside the neonatal unit and woke every time Noah's monitor changed rhythm. His captains brought contracts and reports. Roman signed only what Daniel said could not wait. Most of the time he stood beside the incubator. Noah seemed too small to belong to him. Roman had survived shootings, betrayals, and federal investigations. Yet he felt more fear beside that incubator than he had ever felt with a gun against his chest. Grace Holloway met him on Noah's 2nd morning. She entered the restricted corridor carrying sterile supplies and found one of Roman's guards blocking a respiratory therapist. "The photograph is 6 years old," the guard said. "It is still me," the therapist replied. "Your patient's oxygen level is unstable. No one enters until we verify it." Grace placed down her tray. "Open the door." The guard looked at her. "We have orders, and I have a patient whose lungs do not care about your orders." Roman appeared at the end of the corridor. "What is the problem?" The guard pointed at the therapist. "His photograph does not match." Grace held the badge beside the man's face. He lost weight and grew a beard. "Open the door." Roman looked at her. "Do you know who you are speaking to? A father standing between his son and the person who can help him breathe?" The guard stepped toward her. Roman raised one hand. The guard stopped. Roman opened the door himself. 10 minutes later, Noah's oxygen level stabilized. Roman watched Grace lower the light over the incubator, adjust Noah's position, and rest one gloved hand against his back. The infant's restless movements eased. When she stepped out, Roman was waiting. "What did you do?" He was overstimulated. The doctor said his lungs were the problem. His lungs are a problem. So are bright lights, noise, and people touching him without warning. Grace looked toward the guards lining the hallway. He needs quiet more than he needs an audience. Within an hour, Roman reduced the number of men on the unit. He never admitted she had been right. Over the next several days, Noah improved. His oxygen requirement decreased. His color deepened from gray-red to a softer pink. He tolerated tiny amounts of milk through a feeding tube. Then the scale moved upward. 2 ounces. Roman stared at the number. "Is that good?" "It is movement in the right direction," Grace said. "How much should he gain?" "Enough that you stop asking me every 6 hours." A sound escaped him that was almost a laugh. That evening, she showed him how to touch Noah without startling him. "Warm your hand first." Roman rubbed his palms together. Now place it against his back. Do not stroke him. Just hold still. His hand covered most of Noah's body. The baby shifted, then settled beneath his palm. A minute later, Noah's fingers closed around Roman's smallest finger. Roman stopped breathing. "He knows you," Grace said. "He has never seen me. He knows your voice. He heard it before he was born." Roman's throat moved. "Claire said he kicked whenever I came home." She was probably right. She usually was. It was the first time he had spoken Claire's name to Grace. She did not offer sympathy. She stood beside him in the dim light while Noah held on. For 4 days, the numbers improved. On the 5th morning, Noah lost an ounce. Hale called it normal variation. The next morning, he lost 2 more. By the end of the week, the gains were gone. Hale ordered a specialized intravenous nutrition formula. He explained that premature infants sometimes needed calories delivered directly into the bloodstream. Roman approved every expense before Hale finished speaking. The first bag was connected after midnight. By morning, Noah's temperature had risen. His heart rate remained high. His blood glucose had fallen. Hale blamed stress. The following night, another bag was started. Noah lost more weight. Roman brought specialists from New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. They studied scans, blood panels, and feeding records. Each offered a different possibility: immature digestion, a hidden infection, a rare metabolic disorder. No one found an answer. Hale spoke with the calm authority of a man protecting the room from panic. "This is a complicated premature infant," he told Roman. "His condition may not follow a clean pattern." Grace stood at the edge of the conference and studied the chart. The pattern was not clean, but it existed. Noah was more stable during the day. His temperature rose after certain overnight infusions. His morning weights dropped faster than his evening weights. His abdomen remained soft. The expected signs of severe intestinal failure did not appear. When Grace raised the issue, Hale barely looked at her. "You are searching for order in a body that is not mature enough to behave predictably. I am searching for a reason his worst numbers follow the same 12-hour window." Hale closed the chart. "Follow the orders in front of you." Roman watched from across the room. That night, Caleb Mercer arrived carrying coffee and a leather folder. He looked enough like Roman to be mistaken for a brother from a distance. The same dark hair, the same broad shoulders. Up close, Roman's silence made people careful. Caleb's smile made them comfortable. He embraced Roman beside the waiting room window. "How is he smaller?" Caleb placed the folder on the table. "The captains met this afternoon. The Marconi crew is testing our routes near Chelsea. 2 contractors are refusing payment terms. They need to see you. My son is dying. They know. Then they know where I am." Caleb lowered his voice. "Claire would not want everything you built to fall apart." Roman turned sharply. "Do not use my wife to move me. I am trying to protect you. Protect the docks. Protect the accounts. Leave my family to me." Caleb nodded and pulled Roman into an embrace. "I am your family too." Roman closed his eyes, exhausted enough to accept the words. Over his shoulder, Caleb looked through the glass at Noah. His expression was empty. Grace saw it from the nurse's station. By the end of the 2nd week, Roman slept in pieces and drank espresso until his hands trembled. One morning, Hale announced that Noah had lost another 4 ounces. Roman seized the front of Hale's coat and drove him against the wall. "You told me he was receiving enough nutrition." "He is." "Then where is it going?" "His body is not absorbing it properly. He is attached to a tube. The food is entering his blood. Metabolism is more complicated than that." Roman pulled him closer. "My son is disappearing in front of me, and every answer you give sounds like permission to let it happen." Grace crossed the room. "Let him go." Roman did not turn. Noah's heart rate is climbing. Roman looked at the monitor. The number flashed higher. His grip loosened. Hale stumbled away. Grace lowered the lights and rested her hand against Noah's back until the rhythm slowed. Roman stood behind her. When the room became quiet, he spoke. "I cannot lose him." His voice sounded like a man standing at the edge of a place he did not expect to survive. "I cannot promise you he will live," Grace said. Roman closed his eyes. "But I can promise I will not stop looking." He opened them. "Why would you do that for me? I am not doing it for you." She looked at Noah. "Babies cannot tell us when something hurts. They depend on someone noticing." Roman studied her face. "Then notice everything." "I intend to." That night, after Roman finally fell asleep in the waiting room, Grace opened Noah's records. She compared feeding times with weight measurements. Then she added temperatures, glucose readings, and staff shifts. At first, the numbers looked like chaos. Near dawn, a shape appeared. Noah stabilized during the day. After certain overnight nutrition bags were connected, his temperature rose, his blood sugar fell, and his morning weight dropped. Grace walked to the incubator. The latest bag hung above Noah, nearly empty. She stopped the pump and removed it. The pharmacy label had lifted at one corner. Grace smoothed it down and felt a tiny ridge beneath the paper. She carried the bag beneath the fluorescent light. There, hidden behind the printed label, was a puncture no wider than the point of a needle. Noah's monitor began to alarm. Roman appeared in the doorway. "What happened?" Grace looked at the mark, then at the child fighting beneath the glass. She sealed the bag inside a clear evidence sleeve. "Call Daniel," she said. "No one enters the storage room." Roman came closer. "Grace, tell me what you found." She held the bag between them. This was punctured after it left the pharmacy. Roman's face became still. Behind him, the first gray light of morning spread across Boston. Grace turned toward the locked medication room with the evidence held against her chest while Noah's monitor counted each fragile heartbeat behind her. Grace did not take her eyes off the puncture. The hole was almost nothing, a dark point beneath the pharmacy label, small enough to escape a hurried glance, precise enough to suggest practice. Behind her, Noah's monitor continued counting each fragile heartbeat. Roman stood close enough that she could feel the tension radiating from him. "Call Daniel," Grace repeated. "Tell him no one enters the storage room. No doctors, no nurses, no pharmacy staff." Roman reached for the evidence sleeve. Grace pulled it back. His gaze hardened. "You asked me to notice everything she said. Now, let me protect what I noticed." For 1 second, neither moved. Then Roman took out his phone. "Daniel, lock the medication corridor. Quietly. No one leaves the 7th floor without being identified." Grace disconnected the empty line from Noah's pump and checked his temperature again. It had climbed another fraction of a degree. She replaced the contaminated bag with a sealed emergency nutrition bag from a different batch. Before connecting it, she inspected every seam beneath the light. Roman watched her hands. What could have been put inside it, I do not know. Could it kill him? Grace looked at Noah instead of answering. Roman's voice dropped. "Do not protect me from the truth." "Yes," she said. "Depending on the substance and the amount, it could kill him." The words changed the air in the room. Roman did not shout. He did not move toward the door. The stillness in him became more dangerous than rage. Grace connected the clean bag and began the infusion at a carefully controlled rate. "No one touches this line except me," she said. Roman looked through the incubator wall. "Then you do not leave him. I need to test the old bag. Someone else can test it. Someone else may be involved." Roman turned toward her. "How many people have access?" "Too many. Pharmacy staff, attending physicians, charge nurses, transport staff, and anyone with executive credentials. Then I shut down the hospital, and the person responsible destroys the evidence while everyone is watching your men." Roman stepped closer. His voice was quiet. "You expect me to stand beside my son, While the person poisoning him walks free in the same building, I expect you to behave like a man who wants the truth more than blood." His eyes narrowed. Grace held his gaze. "If you frighten the wrong person, they run. If you accuse the wrong person, the real one changes the method. If you make this about revenge before Noah is safe, you may lose him." Roman looked toward his son again. The anger in his face did not disappear. It folded inward. "What do you need a toxicology test? Access records, pharmacy logs, camera footage, and one person I can trust in this hospital. You trust me." Grace sealed the evidence sleeve. "I trust that you love your son." Roman absorbed the distinction. It was not the answer he wanted, but it was enough. Grace contacted Mara Ellison, an overnight laboratory specialist who had worked at St. Catherine for almost 20 years. Mara was blunt, cautious, and known for refusing favors from powerful doctors. Grace found her in the basement laboratory preparing blood samples for the morning shift. Mara looked at the evidence sleeve, then at Grace. "Whose bag?" "A premature infant." "That is not what I asked." Grace placed Noah's patient label on the counter. Mara's expression changed. "You brought me the Blackwell baby's nutrition bag without an order. I brought you a contaminated medical product that may have been used in an attempted murder." Mara stared at her for several seconds. Then she pulled on fresh gloves. "Lock the door." They photographed the bag from every angle. Mara documented the puncture and removed a sample from a clean section of the port. Grace stood beside her as the laboratory machines began separating the chemical components. "How long?" Grace asked. "For a basic screening, less than an hour. Longer if someone chose something unusual." "Someone did." Mara glanced up. "You sound certain. His weight loss follows the overnight bags. His temperature rises after the infusion. The digestive symptoms do not fit the diagnosis." Mara placed the sample into the analyzer. "And you think a doctor missed that? I think someone needed us to believe they missed it." While the machine worked, Grace returned upstairs. Daniel Cross had positioned 2 trusted security men outside the medication corridor. They wore hospital maintenance jackets over their body armor, but no one looking closely would mistake them for repairmen. Roman stood beside Noah's incubator. His hand rested through the access port, motionless against the baby's back. Noah's heart rate had begun to settle. Grace checked the clean nutrition bag. The seal remained intact. "Any change?" Roman asked. "His temperature is coming down. Because the old bag is gone?" "Possibly." Roman watched her read the monitor. "You say that word when you already know the answer. I say it when I have evidence but not proof. In my world, evidence is enough. This is not your world." He looked around the private neonatal room at the guards outside and the expensive equipment surrounding his son. "Everything becomes my world when someone attacks my family." Grace lowered her voice. "That belief may be why someone thinks they can control you." Roman looked at her sharply. She continued before he could respond. "Who benefits if Noah dies?" The question seemed to offend him. "No one. Someone is taking an enormous risk. They have access to the hospital. They understand his treatment. They know your security is focused on physical threats." Roman's jaw tightened. "My enemies would celebrate. Celebration is not a motive." "What changes if he dies?" Roman looked through the glass. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider the question as something other than a father. "The captains would expect me to retaliate. Against whom? Whoever I believed was responsible." "And if you chose the wrong person?" "A war." Grace nodded. "A war while you are grieving. A war while your attention is divided." Roman's expression became colder. "You think this is about the organization. I think Noah is being used to reach you." The door opened. Dr. Hale entered with a tablet beneath his arm. He stopped when he saw Daniel's men outside. "What is happening?" Roman did not answer. Grace stepped between Hale and the incubator. I found a puncture in Noah's nutrition bag. Hale blinked once, then his face settled into concern. A puncture, hidden beneath the pharmacy label. That could be a packaging defect. It went through the plastic. Pressure damage during transport can create small marks. Grace held up the sealed evidence sleeve. Then toxicology will find nothing. Hale reached toward it. I should examine the bag. Grace moved it out of reach. The laboratory has already taken a sample. Something flickered behind his eyes. It vanished quickly, but Grace saw it. Hale looked toward Roman. Mr. Blackwell, I understand emotions are high, but allowing a nurse to conduct an unauthorized investigation could compromise your son's care. Roman's voice remained quiet. Did you order the bags placed on a separate shelf? Hale hesitated. Yes, to prevent confusion with other patients. Who can access that shelf? Anyone authorized to enter the storage room. Names. Hale adjusted the tablet in his hand. I would need the electronic records. Get them. Hale looked at Grace. Until we know more, the original treatment plan should continue. No, Grace said. His eyes hardened. You are not the attending physician, and that bag is not going back into his line. Hale turned to Roman. Your son is medically unstable. Interrupting his prescribed nutrition could do more harm than any theoretical contamination. Roman stepped closer to him. Grace changed the bag. His temperature began dropping within 20 minutes. That proves nothing. It proves I am listening to her. Hale's mouth tightened. Roman pointed toward the door. Bring me every access record. Hale left without another word. Grace watched him through the glass wall as he crossed the corridor. His pace was controlled. His right hand, however, trembled against the tablet. By mid-morning, Noah's temperature had returned to normal. He had not gained weight, but he had stopped losing ground. Grace printed 3 weeks of records and covered the nurse's station with paper. Every nutrition delivery, every bag change, every temperature spike, every glucose drop, every recorded entry into the storage room. She used a red pen to circle the nights when Noah's condition worsened. Roman remained nearby, silent and impatient. Grace drew a line from each weight loss to the bag delivered before it. The pattern sharpened. The worst declines occurred after bags that remained in storage for more than 40 minutes before reaching Noah. Bags moved directly from the pharmacy to the incubator produced smaller changes, or none at all. Roman leaned over the papers. So the poison is added after delivery. That is what the timing suggests. Who entered the room? Grace checked the records. Dr. Hale's credentials appeared 4 times after midnight. A night pharmacist named Jenna Cole appeared 6 times. 2 charge nurses appeared once each. Roman tapped Jenna's name. She was there most often. She also delivers the bags. She could be working for someone. She could be doing her job. Roman straightened. In my experience, innocent people rarely appear in the same place 6 times. In mine, sick babies do not survive when suspicion replaces evidence. He looked at her. She did not soften the statement. I will speak to her, Grace said. You will not go alone. I am questioning a pharmacist not entering a warehouse. You found poison in my son's bloodline. You are not walking anywhere alone. Grace nearly corrected him. The poison had not yet been confirmed in Noah's blood. Then she saw the fear beneath his insistence. Roman was not trying to control her. He was trying to prevent the only person he trusted from disappearing. Daniel can wait outside, she said. It was a compromise. Roman accepted it. Jenna Cole worked in a small pharmacy office 2 floors below the neonatal unit. She was 30 years old with tired eyes and a wedding ring hanging from a chain around her neck. When Grace entered, Jenna immediately looked toward Daniel in the hallway. I already answered security's questions. I am not security. That is worse. Grace closed the door but left the blinds open. I am trying to understand why Noah's nutrition labels were reprinted. Jenna went still. They were not. The access log shows you entered the storage room on 6 nights before his condition worsened. I deliver medication. And the labels? Jenna looked down at her desk. Grace waited. Silence often revealed more than pressure. Finally, Jenna spoke. Dr. Hale said the original labels were smearing in refrigeration. Did you see them smear? No. Did you replace the labels yourself? He printed new ones using his executive account. He asked me to place them over the old labels after inspecting the bags. Did you remove the original labels? No. He said that could damage the plastic. Grace felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. Did he ever stay in the storage room after you left? Jenna's fingers tightened around a pen. Sometimes. How long? 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Why did you not report it? He is the chief of neonatology. I assumed he had a reason. Grace leaned forward. Jenna, a baby may have been poisoned. The pen slipped from Jenna's hand. No. I found a puncture beneath one of the replacement labels. Jenna's face drained of color. I did not know. I believe you. Tears filled her eyes. Am I going to lose my license? Not if you help me document exactly what happened. Jenna opened the pharmacy system and showed Grace Hale's label requests. They were entered at irregular hours. Each one matched a night when Noah's condition worsened. Grace copied the records to an encrypted drive. Before leaving, she asked one more question. Did Dr. Hale ever mention who requested the separate shelf? Jenna nodded. He said Mr. Blackwell's security team wanted it. Daniel was waiting outside. I never made that request, he said. Grace had expected the answer. They returned to the 7th floor through a service elevator. Roman stood alone in the waiting room staring at a photograph on his phone. Claire was laughing beside him on a boat, one hand shielding her eyes from the sun. He locked the screen when Grace entered. What did she say? Hale changed the labels. He used his own credentials and stayed in the storage room after the pharmacist left. Roman reached for his jacket. Grace blocked the doorway. We still need proof of what he put in the bag. He hid punctures beneath labels. We need the chemical result. I do not. You do if you want to know who is behind him. Roman stopped. You think Hale is not acting alone. He is a respected physician with a career, money, and access. Killing your son gives him nothing unless someone is paying or threatening him. Roman's eyes darkened. Then I ask him. He will lie. Everyone tells the truth eventually. Grace understood what the sentence meant. She moved closer. If you touch him before we know the whole chain, whoever hired him disappears. Roman looked down at her. You speak to me as though you are not afraid. I am afraid. His expression shifted slightly. Of me. Of being too late. The answer silenced him. Grace's phone rang. Mara. She answered immediately. I found something Mara said. Come down alone. Grace looked toward Roman. He had heard enough. I am coming with you, he said. Mara objected when Roman entered the laboratory, but one look at his face ended the argument. She placed a printed report on the counter. The sample contains traces of a prohibited metabolic compound. It forces cells to release energy as heat instead of storing it efficiently. Grace read the values. In a premature infant, Mara removed her glasses. It could cause rapid calorie depletion, rising temperature, low blood sugar, organ stress, and severe weight loss. Roman's hand closed around the edge of the counter. Could it look like a disease? Yes, especially if given in small amounts over time. Could it be accidental? Mara looked directly at him. Not in this concentration. The room became silent. Roman stared at the report as if it were a confession written in blood. How long does my son have? Mara looked at Grace. Grace answered. If the contaminated bags are removed and his organs have not suffered permanent damage, he has a chance. That is not what I asked. It is the only honest answer. Roman turned away. He placed both hands against the steel counter and lowered his head. For a few seconds, he was not the man who controlled docks companies or armed crews. He was a father standing in a basement laboratory while a stranger explained how someone had been starving his child from the inside. Grace stepped beside him. "Noah has already responded to the clean infusion." Roman did not look up. "You said chance." "Yes. How much of one I do not know yet." His shoulders tightened. Grace placed the report inside a protective folder. "We test his blood. We check his liver, heart, and kidney function. We monitor every line. We do not assume he is safe until the numbers prove it." Roman looked at her. "And while you do that, we find the person responsible." Something passed between them. Not trust in the simple sense. Trust born from fear, sharpened by necessity. On the elevator back upstairs, Roman stood beside Grace while Daniel faced the doors. Roman noticed the pale scar disappearing beneath the sleeve of her scrubs. "How did you get that?" Grace looked down. "Afghanistan." Daniel glanced back. Roman's attention remained on her. "You served 4 years as an army medic, in combat." "Yes." The elevator continued rising. Roman studied her as if a missing piece had fallen into place. "That is why you do not flinch." "I flinch. I have never seen it. You are not looking at the right moments." The doors opened on the 7th floor. Before Grace stepped out, Roman spoke quietly. "Why did you leave?" She paused. "I got tired of carrying children through wars started by men who never saw them bleed." She walked toward Noah's room. Roman remained inside the elevator for 1 second longer, absorbing the answer. That afternoon, Noah's blood tests showed signs of metabolic stress, but no clear organ failure. Grace allowed herself one breath of relief. She did not tell Roman it would be enough. Instead, she taught him how to recognize the difference between Noah's normal restlessness and signs of distress. Roman listened with an attention he rarely gave anyone. "His shoulders pull inward when he is struggling," Grace said. "Watch the space beneath his ribs." Roman leaned closer to the incubator. "I see it. And his color changes around the mouth first." Roman looked at her. "You notice everything about him. That is the job." "No. Hale's job is to notice. He did the opposite." Grace adjusted the blanket beneath Noah. Hale knew what he was seeing. Roman's expression hardened again. Grace felt the danger rising in him. She rested her hand on the edge of the incubator. "Do not leave this room." He looked at her. "I need the camera records," she continued. "Daniel can help me. You think I will kill him? I think you are deciding how." Roman's silence confirmed it. Grace lowered her voice. "Noah needs his father beside him more than he needs another body hidden somewhere." The words landed harder than a threat. Roman sat beside the incubator. "Go." The hospital security office occupied a windowless room beneath the parking garage. Daniel used Roman's authority to gain access without informing the hospital administrator. A technician pulled up the storage corridor recordings. Several sections were missing. Each gap lasted exactly 12 minutes. The technician frowned. "That is not a system failure." "How do you know?" Grace asked. "Failures leave corrupted files. These segments were placed into maintenance mode." "By whom?" The technician opened the administrative log. An executive credential appeared beside every missing interval. M. H. Haley. Grace copied the files and access report. Daniel stared at the screen. "That is enough for Roman. It is enough to prove Hale hid his movements." "You still think someone hired him?" "Yes." Daniel leaned against the desk. "Roman has many enemies. Who has access to him while he is grieving?" Daniel's expression changed. Grace saw that the question had found something. "Who?" she asked. Daniel looked toward the technician, then guided Grace into the hallway. "Caleb Mercer, Roman's cousin, his underboss. They grew up together. Does Caleb gain control if Roman becomes unable to lead?" Daniel's jaw tightened. The captains could appoint him temporarily. And if Noah dies, Daniel did not answer immediately. "Roman has no other heir." Grace felt the pieces moving closer together. Has Caleb been at the hospital during the nights Noah declined? He comes and goes. Check. Daniel called one of his men and requested the visitor logs. Grace returned upstairs alone. She found Roman asleep in a chair beside Noah's incubator, his head tilted against the wall. One hand remained through the access port. Noah's fingers were wrapped around the tip of his finger. Grace stopped in the doorway. The room was dim except for the green light of the monitors. Rain pressed softly against the window. Roman's face looked younger in sleep. Grief had taken the hardness from him and left exhaustion behind. Grace approached quietly. Noah's temperature remained stable. His blood sugar had improved. She adjusted the blanket near his feet. Roman's eyes opened. His free hand moved instantly toward the inside of his jacket. Then he recognized her. "You should sleep," Grace said. "So should you. I am working." "So am I." She looked at the chair. "You call that working? I am keeping him company. He does not know whether you are awake." "I know." Grace sat across from him. For a moment neither spoke. Then Roman asked, "Do you have children?" "No." "Do you want them?" The question surprised her. Someday, with the right man, with a man who understands that fear is not the same as love. Roman looked at her carefully. "You think I confuse them? I think many people obey you because they are afraid. That can look like loyalty from a distance. And what does loyalty look like up close? Someone telling you the truth when lying would be safer." Roman's eyes held hers. "Is that what you are doing?" "Yes." He looked down at Noah's hand. "Claire did that." Grace waited. "She told me Caleb resented me," Roman said. "I thought she misunderstood him." "Why?" "Because he took a bullet for me when we were 19. One loyal act does not erase everything that follows." Roman's expression sharpened. "Why are we speaking about Caleb?" Grace had not intended to reveal the suspicion yet. She chose her words carefully. "Daniel is checking visitor logs." Roman slowly withdrew his hand from the incubator. "You suspect him." "I suspect anyone who benefits from your collapse." "Caleb is my blood. So is Noah." The words cut through the room. Roman stood. Grace did not. "You have evidence?" he asked. "Not yet." "Then do not speak his name." Grace rose to face him. "Your wife did." Roman's eyes flashed. For one dangerous second she wondered whether she had pushed too far. Then Noah made a weak sound inside the incubator. Both turned toward him. The anger left Roman's face as quickly as it had appeared. Grace checked the monitors and placed a steadying hand against Noah's side. His breathing settled. Roman stood behind her. "I ignored Claire once," he said, quietly. "I will not ignore you." Grace looked over her shoulder. "That is not the same as believing me." "No." His voice softened. "But it is closer than I have been with anyone since she died." The admission stayed between them. Neither moved. Then Daniel entered. He held a printed visitor log. Caleb was here on 7 of the 9 nights the baby had the largest weight drops. Roman took the paper. His expression became unreadable. "Where is he now?" "According to his driver on his way here." Grace felt the room contract. "Do not confront him," she said. Roman continued reading. "He came after midnight and left before dawn. He may have been visiting you. He never came into this room." Daniel looked toward Grace. "He used the service elevator." Roman folded the paper once. "Carefully. Find out where he went." Grace checked the time. It was after 2 in the morning. The floor had quieted. The day staff were gone. The night nurses spoke in whispers behind the central station. Hale had not returned since the morning. Grace left Noah under the care of a nurse she trusted and walked toward the service corridor. She did not tell Roman. She knew he would send 3 armed men behind her, and no one revealed secrets while surrounded by guns. Near the stairwell, she heard voices above. One was Hale's. "You said the dosage would remain low." Another voice answered. "Caleb, I said the child needed to die without looking murdered." Grace stopped on the landing. She took out her phone and began recording. Hale sounded strained. "He is deteriorating faster than expected. If the nurse orders an independent toxicology panel, this ends. Then stop her." She already removed one of the bags. Silence followed. Grace pressed herself against the concrete wall. Caleb's voice became colder. "You assured me no one would notice. No one was supposed to. Holloway is reviewing the charts herself." The nurse with the military background, Grace's breath caught. Caleb knew who she was. Hale continued. "I cannot keep altering the records. The pharmacist is frightened. Security is asking questions. You are being paid $2 million. I have not received anything. You receive it when the boy is dead. And my daughter. She remains safe as long as you remain useful." Hale's voice cracked. "You promised you would leave her out of this." "I promised many things." Grace moved the phone closer to the stairwell opening. Hale lowered his voice. "What about Claire?" "The police are still investigating the bomb." Caleb gave a quiet laugh. "The police investigate what they are allowed to see. You said the explosion would solve everything. It should have. Claire was supposed to die with the child inside her." Grace's hand tightened around the phone. "The paramedic saved him," Hale said. "And now you are correcting their mistake." The words echoed through the stairwell. For a moment, Grace saw Roman kneeling beside the burning vehicle. She saw the photograph on his phone. Claire laughing beneath the sun. Caleb had not simply used the tragedy. He had created it. A door opened above. Grace stopped the recording and stepped into the shadow beneath the stairs. Caleb descended past her landing. He wore a dark overcoat and carried no visible weapon. Hale followed several steps behind. Neither looked toward the lower flight. Grace waited until the stairwell door closed beneath them. Then she moved. She reached the 7th floor through the opposite corridor and hurried toward Noah's room. The nurse's station was empty. Roman was no longer beside the incubator. Grace heard a refrigerator door close near the medication storage room. Hale stepped into the corridor. A syringe disappeared beneath his coat sleeve. He looked up. Grace stood at the far end of the hall with her phone still in her hand. Their eyes met. Hale's face changed. The frightened physician vanished. In his place stood a man who understood that only one of them could leave the corridor with the truth. Grace moved toward the storage room. Hale entered first. The heavy door remained open behind him. Inside, the white nutrition bags waited beneath the cold fluorescent light. Grace crossed the threshold. Hale reached past her and locked the door. The lock clicked behind Grace. The sound was small, almost ordinary, but it changed the room. Cold air moved through the storage space. Rows of sealed nutrition bags hung beneath white fluorescent lights. Every surface smelled of plastic, antiseptic, and metal. Dr. Miles Hale stood between Grace and the door. His right hand remained inside his coat. Grace kept her phone at her side. Neither of them spoke at first. Hale looked toward the phone. "How much did you hear enough?" His eyes moved to the refrigeration shelves, then back to her. "You should have stayed at the nurse's station. You should have stayed a doctor." Something tightened in his face. Grace could see sweat gathering near his hairline despite the cold. He was afraid. Fear did not make him harmless. It made him unpredictable. Hale slowly removed his hand from his coat. A syringe rested between his fingers. The liquid inside was clear. Grace did not step back. "What is in it?" she asked. "Something fast. You planned this." "I planned for mistakes." His voice shook, but the needle remained pointed toward her. Grace shifted her weight onto the balls of her feet. The distance between them was less than 8 feet. Too far to grab his wrist before he moved. Close enough to close the distance if he lunged. Hale glanced toward the door. If you give me the phone, you can walk out. You know that is not true. I do not want to hurt you. You poisoned a premature baby for money." His jaw clenched. "You do not understand what happened. I heard enough to understand Claire Blackwell died because Caleb Mercer wanted Roman's chair." Hale's eyes widened. Grace had not only confirmed that she knew about Noah, she had confirmed that she knew about the bombing. The last uncertainty left his face. "You should not have said her name. You were going to kill me anyway." Hale moved closer. Grace raised one hand. "Stop." He did not. "You think Roman Blackwell will protect you?" Hale asked. "He will use you until this is over. Then you will become another person who knows too much." Grace watched the syringe. "Maybe. He destroys everyone around him." "Then why are you more afraid of Caleb?" Hale stopped. The question struck something raw. Grace continued. "You are not loyal to Caleb. You are terrified of him. You know nothing about me. I know your hand is shaking." Hale looked down. Only for a second. Grace moved. She threw her phone toward the far side of the room. It struck a shelf and clattered across the floor. Hale turned instinctively. Grace closed the distance. She caught his wrist with both hands and drove his arm upward. The needle passed beside her neck. Hale slammed his shoulder into her chest. Grace struck the shelving behind her. Pain spread across her back. He twisted, trying to force the syringe down. "You should have listened," he hissed. Grace drove her knee into the inside of his thigh. His balance broke. She turned beneath his arm, trapped his wrist against her shoulder, and pulled. A sharp crack filled the room. Hale screamed. The syringe fell. Grace kicked it beneath the lowest shelf. Hale swung at her with his free hand. The blow glanced across her cheek. She stepped inside his reach and drove the heel of her palm beneath his chin. His head snapped back. Before he could recover, she hooked one foot behind his ankle and sent him to the floor. He landed hard on his back. The breath left him in a broken sound. Grace dropped one knee beside his shoulder and pressed his injured wrist against the cold tile. Hale stared up at her. Disbelief replaced pain. "You are a nurse. I was a combat medic first." He struggled. Grace increased the pressure. His face twisted. "You are going to stay still," she said. "You are going to answer every question, and you are going to pray Noah survives long enough for you to face what you did." Hale opened his mouth. A crash sounded outside. The door shook in its frame. Roman's voice came through the steel. "Grace!" She looked toward the lock. "I am here." Another impact struck the door. The frame bent. Hale's expression changed again. This time the fear was absolute. The third blow tore the latch from the wall. The door opened inward. Daniel entered first with a pistol raised. 2 security men followed. Roman came through behind them. His eyes found Grace. Blood darkened the corner of her mouth. Her hair had fallen loose from its tie. One knee pinned Hale to the floor. Roman stopped. For a moment, he looked only at her. Then he saw the syringe beneath the shelf. His face emptied. "What did he do?" "He tried to inject me." Roman reached inside his jacket. Grace knew what he was going to do before the gun appeared. "Do not." He ignored her. Roman crossed the room and pressed the barrel against Hale's forehead. Hale began to shake. Roman, Grace said, "You locked her in a room." Hale tried to speak. Roman pressed the weapon harder against his skin. "You pointed a needle at her." "I was forced." Roman's voice lowered. "By whom?" Hale closed his eyes. Grace rose carefully. Pain moved through her shoulder, but nothing felt broken. She picked up her phone from the floor. The screen was cracked, yet the recording still ran. She stopped it. Roman did not look away from Hale. Grace touched Roman's wrist. His arm felt rigid beneath her hand. "I heard Caleb confess," she said. The name entered the room like smoke. Roman's eyes shifted to her. "What did you say Caleb hired Hale? He paid him to poison Noah. He also arranged Claire's bombing." Roman stared at her. The gun remained against Hale's forehead. Grace opened the recording. Caleb's voice filled the storage room. The child was never supposed to leave that car alive. Roman did not move. Hale began to cry. The recording continued. Claire was supposed to die with the child inside her. The words repeated through the cold room. Roman's breathing slowed. The silence inside him became something deeper than rage. Grace had seen men react like this before. Not when pain arrived, when pain became too large to feel all at once. Roman looked down at Hale. "You knew." Hale swallowed. Roman pulled back the hammer of the gun. Grace tightened her grip on his wrist. "No." Roman turned toward her. His eyes were almost black. "He murdered my wife. Hale helped Caleb murder your son. Move your hand." "No." Daniel shifted near the doorway. The other guards watched Grace as if she had stepped in front of a moving train. Roman lowered his voice. "Grace, you kill him now. Caleb hears about it before sunrise. He will not live until sunrise. Then you lose the confession. I have the recording. You have one conversation recorded from a stairwell. Caleb can claim it was altered. He can call Hale a frightened liar. He can tell your captain's grief has made you unstable." Roman's jaw tightened. Grace did not release him. "If you shoot a respected physician inside a hospital, Caleb does not have to remove you. You remove yourself." Hale stared between them. Roman looked at Grace's bruised cheek. "He tried to kill you, and he failed. That does not make him innocent." "No, it makes him useful." Roman's arm remained rigid. Grace stepped closer. "You asked me to find the truth. This is not all of it. I know who ordered the bomb. You know what Caleb said in private. Your captains need to know what he does when he believes he has won." Roman's eyes stayed on hers. She could feel the heat of his anger beneath her hand. "You want me to wait. I want you to think. I have spent 3 weeks watching my son disappear, and Caleb is counting on that." The word struck him harder than anything else. Roman looked back at Hale. For several seconds, the only sound was the hum of the refrigeration units. Then Roman lowered the gun. Hale released a breath that became a sob. Roman crouched beside him. "You are alive because she asked me to think." Hale nodded rapidly. Roman grabbed the front of his coat. If she had been hurt, there would be no plan, no confession, no mourning. "Do you understand me?" "Yes." Roman pulled him halfway off the floor. "Say it clearly." "I understand." Roman released him. Hale collapsed against the shelving. Grace picked up a clean evidence container and used forceps to retrieve the syringe. Daniel sealed it. Roman looked at the blood near Grace's mouth. "Let me see. I am fine." That was not a request. Grace looked at him. Under any other circumstances, his tone would have angered her. Now she heard the fear beneath it. She turned her face slightly. Roman touched her chin with 2 fingers. His hand was warm against her cold skin. The gesture was careful, too careful for a man who had held a gun against another person's head moments earlier. "It is a split lip," Grace said. "He hit you." "I hit him harder." A faint change passed through Roman's expression. Not a smile, something close. Then he looked at the scar near her wrist. "You learned that in Afghanistan?" "Yes. You never told me you could break a man's arm. You never asked." Roman's thumb brushed the edge of the bruise on her cheek. Grace felt the touch more strongly than she wanted to. They stood too close. The room seemed quieter around them. Daniel cleared his throat. Roman removed his hand. The hardness returned to his face. "Take Hale to the private consultation room," he said. "No one sees him enter. Daniel's men lifted the doctor. Hale groaned when they touched his injured wrist. Grace followed them into the corridor. Noah's room was visible through the glass. His monitor remained steady. The clean infusion continued. Grace went to him first. She checked the line, his temperature, and the color around his mouth. Roman stood behind her. "He is stable," she said. "For how long I do not know." Roman looked at Hale being dragged away. "Then we do this quickly." The consultation room had no windows. Daniel searched Hale and removed his phone identification card, wallet, and keys. Roman sat across from him. Grace remained near the door with her cracked phone and the evidence reports. Hale held his injured wrist against his chest. His white coat had torn at the shoulder. Without the coat, without the hospital staff following his orders, he looked smaller. Roman placed the pistol on the table. The barrel faced Hale. "Start with Claire." Hale shook his head. "I did not know about the bomb until after it happened. Caleb told you. He told me the child was not supposed to survive. The night he approached me." "Why you?" Hale looked toward Grace. Roman struck the table with his palm. "Look at me." Hale flinched. "My clinic was failing." "What clinic?" "A private neonatal center in Cambridge. I had investors. Construction had begun. Then the financing collapsed." "So you sold my son." "It was not that simple." Roman reached for the gun. Grace spoke before he touched it. "Explain it." Hale swallowed. "I had borrowed money, more than the clinic could repay." "Some of the financial statements were false," Fraud Grace said. "Yes, Caleb knew. He had copies. He said he could make the debt disappear. He offered $2 million if I helped create a medical decline no one would question." Roman stared at him. "You agreed because you were in debt." "No." Hale's voice broke. "He showed me photographs of my daughter leaving her dormitory. He knew her schedule. He knew where my former wife lived." Roman's expression did not change. "Did he threaten them?" "He said accidents happen to people whose fathers make the wrong decisions." Grace watched Hale carefully. Fear could explain obedience. It did not erase the repeated choices that followed. "You had 3 weeks to report him," she said. "To whom?" The police hospital security, Roman Blackwell. Hale looked at Roman. "I thought if I controlled the amount the baby would decline slowly. I told myself Caleb only wanted you distracted." Roman's hand closed around the edge of the table. "You injected poison into my son and told yourself he would survive." Hale began crying again. "At first I used smaller amounts." "At first," Grace repeated. "He kept increasing the pressure. He said the captains were losing patience. He needed Noah dead before Roman returned to the organization." Roman leaned forward. "How did you get the compound? Caleb provided it." "From where I do not know." "You are lying." "I swear." Roman reached for Hale's injured wrist. Hale recoiled. "I do not know." It arrived in an unmarked medical container. Caleb said it came through one of his shipping contacts. Daniel stood near the wall recording the confession on 2 devices. Grace placed the toxicology report on the table. "How did you conceal the punctures?" Hale looked down. "Replacement pharmacy labels." "I entered maintenance mode on the cameras. Jenna delivered the bags. I waited until she left." "Did Jenna know?" Grace asked. "No. Did anyone else at the hospital know?" "No." "Did you alter Noah's records?" "Yes." "Which records?" "Temperature notes. Nutrition totals. 2 blood glucose readings. I delayed 1 laboratory result and changed the wording in the consulting reports." Grace felt anger rise behind her ribs. Every altered number had pushed Noah closer to death. Every calm explanation had been another dose of poison. Roman watched her. He recognized the change in her face. What else, he asked Hale. That is everything. Grace played the stairwell recording again. Caleb's voice mentioned the bombing. Roman listened without blinking. When it ended, he asked one question. Did Caleb ever describe how he killed Claire Hale, looked sick? He said someone placed the device beneath the first vehicle after the security inspection. Who he never gave me a name. Did he say why she had to die? Hale hesitated. Roman leaned closer. Answer. He said Claire made you weak. Roman's face remained still. Hale continued. He said you were changing the organization because of her, moving money into legitimate businesses, refusing certain routes, closing operations she considered dangerous. Daniel looked toward Roman. Grace saw the truth in his reaction. Claire had not only been Roman's wife, she had been changing the direction of his life. Hale lowered his voice. Caleb believed Noah would finish what she started. He said once you had an heir, you would stop protecting the organization and start protecting the future. Roman stood. His chair moved backward across the floor. Grace stepped toward him. He did not reach for the gun. He walked to the far wall and placed both hands against it. His head lowered. No one spoke. Grace imagined Claire beside him at the charity dinner asking for one quiet night. She imagined Roman hearing her voice every time he looked at Noah. When Roman turned back, his grief had become controlled again. Caleb wants my chair, he said. Daniel nodded. If Noah dies and you appear unable to lead, the captains could appoint Caleb. They would call it temporary. It would not remain temporary. Roman looked at Hale. When does Caleb expect the boy to die? Within 48 hours. He will not wait that long if he thinks Grace found the poison. Hale swallowed. He may already know. Grace remembered Caleb asking about the nurse with the military background. He knows I am investigating. Roman looked at Daniel. Find Caleb. Grace stopped him. No. Roman turned. He threatened you. He believes Hale is still following the plan. Hale disappeared from the floor. Then we put him back. Hale lifted his head. Grace moved toward the table. Caleb does not know the contaminated bag was tested. He does not know you heard the recording. He only knows I became suspicious. Roman understood before she finished. You want Hale to tell him Noah is still declining? Yes. And then we give Caleb what he wants. Daniel frowned. Grace looked toward Roman. We let him believe Noah died. Hale stared at her. Roman did not react. Grace continued. Hale announces organ failure in the morning. You appear broken. Caleb believes there is no heir and no one left to hold you in place. He moves for control, Daniel said. In front of the captains, Grace replied. Roman looked at her. You believe he will confess. He may not confess to the poisoning. He does not need to. He only needs to reveal why he was waiting for Noah to die. We already have Hale's confession. Caleb will call it coercion. But if the captains see him claim your position before your son is even cold, they will understand his motive. Roman glanced at the gun. And Noah? We move him. Wear a secure pediatric recovery suite on the surgical floor. It has independent access, full monitoring, and no connection to the public patient directory. Who knows? Me. Another neonatologist, Daniel, and you. No hospital administrator, no board members, no one from your organization except Daniel. Roman looked toward Hale. He makes the announcement. Grace nodded. He also replaces every contaminated bag with a clean one under supervision. Hale shook his head. Caleb will kill me. Roman walked toward him. If you do not cooperate, Caleb will not have the opportunity. Hale became silent. Grace moved between them before Roman could come closer. There are conditions. Roman's eyes settled on her. This is not a negotiation. It is if you need me to keep Noah alive. The room changed. Daniel looked away. Hale stared at the floor. Roman stood less than a foot from Grace. What conditions no weapons fired inside the hospital? Roman said nothing. No threats against innocent staff. No punishment before Noah is secure. Hale's confession and the medical evidence go to federal investigators. Roman's expression hardened. Hale belongs to me. No. He belongs in a courtroom. He poisoned my son. And if you make him disappear, every person involved can claim he acted alone. Roman's eyes narrowed. You think the law will punish Caleb? I think the evidence should exist outside your control. That was not my question. Grace held his gaze. No, I do not think the law will reach Caleb before you do. Roman studied her. She continued. But Hale is a physician who used a hospital to murder a child. His license, his records, and his confession need to become public. Other patients may have been harmed by his fraud. Hale looked up. There were no others. Grace turned toward him. You do not get to decide whether anyone believes that. Roman remained silent. Grace faced him again. You trusted me with Noah. That is the only reason you can speak to me this way. No. She stepped closer. The reason is that you let me. Something shifted in his eyes. The distance between them felt suddenly dangerous in another way. Roman's attention moved to the bruise on her cheek. His voice softened. You were alone in that room. I handled it. You should not have had to. Grace felt the truth behind the words. Roman was not speaking only about Hale. He was speaking about every moment she had stood between Noah and danger while he remained trapped outside the glass. Grace lowered her voice. Then trust the plan. Roman looked at her for a long time. Finally, he nodded once. No weapons fired inside the hospital. Grace waited. Hale goes to federal investigators, and no innocent staff are threatened. Roman's mouth tightened. Agreed. Grace breathed out. Daniel began arranging the move. A trusted neonatologist named Dr. Evelyn Shaw arrived before dawn. Grace showed her the toxicology report, Noah's altered records, and Hale's confession. Shaw's face became pale. We need to notify the board. After Noah is moved, Grace said. Shaw looked through the glass at Roman's guards. This could end my career. Roman spoke from behind her. If you help save my son, you will never need to worry about employment again. Grace looked at him. He corrected himself. You will have whatever professional protection your attorney considers appropriate. Grace almost smiled. He was learning. Noah was transferred inside a covered neonatal transport incubator. The route used a private service elevator reserved for surgical emergencies. Daniel cleared every corridor before the move. Roman walked beside the incubator. His hand remained on the frame. Grace monitored Noah's breathing as the elevator descended one floor. The doors opened onto a silent corridor. Inside the recovery suite, Grace checked every connection herself. Noah's temperature remained stable. His blood glucose had improved. The clean nutrition moved through the line one measured drop at a time. Roman stood at the foot of the incubator. How long until we know the damage? Hours for the immediate numbers. Days for the rest. Will he wake? He is awake now. Roman moved closer. Noah opened his eyes for a moment. They were dark and unfocused. Roman touched the glass. Grace lowered one side of the protective cover. You can place your hand inside. Roman looked at her. Is it safe? Yes. He rested his palm against Noah's back. The baby shifted beneath it. Roman closed his eyes. Grace watched the tension leave his shoulders one breath at a time. When he opened them again, she saw the man beneath the title, beneath the guns, and the fear. A father who had already buried one person he loved. He cannot die, Roman whispered. Grace checked the monitor. I am doing everything I can. That is not enough. It has to be. Roman looked at her. For once, he did not argue. Hale returned to the 7th floor before 6 in the morning. His wrist had been placed in a temporary brace. He told the night staff he had injured it in a fall. Daniel's men remained close enough to stop him from making an unmonitored call. At 6:30, Hale sent Caleb a short message. "The child is failing. Be ready." Caleb answered less than a minute later. "I will come when it is done." Roman read the message without expression. The 6 senior captains received calls telling them Noah's condition had become critical. They began arriving through separate entrances. Grace watched them on the security monitor from the recovery suite. Men in dark coats entered the waiting room and spoke in low voices. Some looked uncomfortable inside the hospital. Others watched Roman carefully. Roman sat alone near the shattered remains of the old coffee table. His head was lowered. Grace had seen him practice nothing. He did not need to. The grief was already inside him. At 6:55, she entered the waiting room through the private corridor. Roman looked up. For a moment, the captain saw only the nurse approaching their boss. Grace stopped beside him. "Noah is stable," she whispered. Roman's eyes closed briefly. "Caleb, on his way upstairs." Grace touched Roman's shoulder. The contact lasted only a second. It carried more than comfort. It carried the promise that his son was alive somewhere beyond the walls. Roman covered her hand with his. Then he released it. Grace returned to the recovery suite. Caleb entered the hospital at 6:58. He wore a black overcoat and carried a single white rose. The elevator doors opened. He walked toward the waiting room with sorrow arranged carefully across his face. At 6:59, Hale stood outside the NICU doors. His skin was gray. Daniel watched from the far end of the hall. Roman sat with his hands clasped between his knees. The captains waited. Inside the hidden recovery room, Grace stood beside Noah's incubator and watched the second hand move across the clock. At exactly 7, the code blue alarm began to scream. The sound tore through the 7th floor sharp enough to make every man in the private waiting room turn toward the neonatal unit. Doctors rushed through the double doors. A respiratory therapist followed with an emergency cart. Nurses moved around the empty decoy room with controlled urgency, calling out numbers that had been rehearsed only once. From the hidden recovery suite 1 floor below, Grace watched the scene on a security monitor. Noah lay inside the real incubator beside her. His chest rose and fell beneath the soft light. His heart rate remained steady. The clean nutrition continued moving through his line. Dr. Evelyn Shaw stood at the opposite side of the incubator studying the latest blood results. "He is holding," Shaw said. Grace kept her eyes on the monitor. Upstairs, Roman sat alone among the syndicate captains. His hands were clasped between his knees. His head remained lowered. Anyone looking at him would have seen a man waiting for the last piece of his life to be taken away. Only Grace knew that every second of the performance was cutting through wounds he had never allowed to close. A minute passed, then another. Caleb Mercer entered the waiting room carrying the white rose. He paused near the door as if the sight of Roman's grief had stopped him. The captains made space. Caleb crossed the room and placed one hand on Roman's shoulder. "Roman." Roman did not look up. Caleb lowered himself into the chair beside him. "I came as soon as I heard." Roman's fingers tightened together. Caleb leaned closer. "You are not alone." The words almost broke Roman's control. He remembered Caleb standing beside him at Claire's funeral. Caleb had held Noah's incubator door open when Roman first entered the neonatal room. He had brought food reports, clothes, and quiet words of loyalty. All of it had been a performance. Roman forced himself to breathe. Caleb turned toward the double doors. What are they saying? Roman kept his voice low. Nothing yet. Caleb placed the white rose on the table. Across the room, Captain Thomas Reed watched them closely. Reed had served Roman's father before Roman was old enough to understand what the family business meant. His hair was silver now, but his eyes remained sharp. Beside him stood Vincent Cole, Marcus Lane, Anthony Burke, Samuel Grant, and Julian Price. 6 men who controlled the crew's money and territory that kept the Blackwell organization alive. They had been told Noah was dying. They had not been told they were about to witness a coup. At 7:14, the double doors opened. Dr. Hale stepped into the corridor. His injured wrist remained hidden beneath his coat sleeve. His face looked pale enough to make the lie believable. Roman stood. Every captain turned toward the doctor. Hale looked at Roman, then lowered his eyes. I am sorry. Roman did not move. Hale continued. His heart stopped after a sudden metabolic collapse. We attempted resuscitation, but the damage to his organs was too severe. The room became completely still. Even the hospital noises seemed distant. Roman stared at Hale. For 1 second he saw the man kneeling in the consultation room confessing what he had done. Then the image changed. He saw Noah beneath white blankets, small and motionless. He saw Claire inside the ambulance, her fingers cold in his hand. The grief rising through him was not false. Roman kicked the glass coffee table. It shattered against the wall. Several captains stepped back. Roman seized a chair and threw it across the room. It struck the floor and broke beneath the force. Then he stopped. His shoulders folded inward. He pressed one hand over his mouth and sank to his knees among the broken glass. No one approached him. Men who had watched Roman order deaths without changing expression looked away from the sight of him breaking. Caleb remained still for only a moment. Then he rushed forward. He knelt beside Roman and placed both arms around him. My brother Caleb whispered, I am so sorry. Roman allowed the embrace. His face rested against Caleb's shoulder. His eyes remained open. Behind Caleb's back, the grief in Roman's expression disappeared. Something colder took its place. Caleb held him tighter. You did everything you could. Roman's voice came out rough. He was all I had left. I know. My wife, my son, I know. Caleb's hand moved slowly across Roman's back, comforting him like family. Roman imagined that same hand passing a container of poison to Hale. For one violent second he wanted to reach inside Caleb's coat, take his weapon, and end everything on the waiting room floor. Then he heard Grace's voice in his memory. You do not need his blood yet. You need his voice. Roman lowered his head again. Caleb helped him into a chair. Dr. Hale remained near the doorway. Daniel Cross stood several feet behind him, watching every movement. Hale looked once toward Daniel. The warning in Daniel's face was clear. Do not improvise. Do not run. Do not speak to Caleb alone. Hale returned to the neonatal unit. Caleb sat beside Roman. The captains waited in silence. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Caleb looked at the clock. The concern on his face remained carefully arranged, but Grace saw something else on the security monitor. Relief. The smallest softening near his eyes. The slight release of tension in his shoulders. Noah's death had not surprised him. It had freed him. Grace looked away from the screen and checked the infant's temperature. Noah moved one hand beneath the blanket. His fingers opened and closed. You are safe, Grace whispered. Shaw glanced at her. Roman is convincing. He is not acting as much as Caleb thinks. Upstairs, Captain Reed walked toward Roman. I am sorry for your loss. Roman did not answer. Reed placed a hand on his shoulder. We can handle everything outside these walls. You stay here. Caleb looked up. The situation outside these walls is exactly what concerns me. Reed turned toward him. This is not the time. The Marconi crew does not care what time it is. Caleb stood slowly. He faced the captains with sorrow still visible across his features. Our routes in Chelsea were tested twice this week. 2 of our construction partners are refusing payment schedules. The federal audit into Harbor Point Holdings is expanding. Roman remained seated. Caleb glanced toward him before continuing. Roman has lost his wife. Now he has lost his son. No man should be asked to lead while carrying this kind of grief. Captain Burke frowned. No one is asking him to discuss business today. I am not asking him to. Then what are you saying? Caleb drew a quiet breath. I am saying the organization cannot remain without active leadership. Roman's head remained lowered. Grace leaned closer to the monitor. Caleb moved toward the center of the room. He had waited years for this moment. It showed in the way his shoulders straightened. I have managed operations during Roman's absence. I have met with the crews. I have secured the docks. I have protected the accounts while he remained here. Captain Cole crossed his arms. You were doing the work of an underboss. I was doing the work that needed to be done. Reed watched Caleb carefully. What do you want? Caleb looked toward Roman. I want him to have time to grieve without watching everything his father built collapse around him. Roman's eyes remained fixed on the floor. Caleb continued. For the protection of the family, I am assuming temporary control of the Blackwell organization. Silence followed. No captain agreed. No captain refused. Caleb had chosen his words carefully. Temporary control sounded like duty. It sounded like sacrifice. It sounded less dangerous than the truth. Captain Grant spoke first. Roman has not stepped down. Caleb looked toward him. He should not have to make that decision today. Then you cannot make it for him. The crews need direction. They have direction, Reed said. They answer to Roman. Caleb's expression tightened. Roman has not attended a captain's meeting in 3 weeks. His son was fighting for his life. And now his son is dead. The sentence came too quickly, too cleanly. Every captain heard it. Roman slowly lifted his head. Caleb saw the movement and softened his tone. I do not say that without pain. Noah was my blood too. Roman looked at him. Caleb's eyes held grief. His voice held control. Roman wondered how many years it had taken him to become this good at lying. Caleb turned back toward the captains. The Marconis are watching. Our political relationships are weakening. If Roman responds to this loss by starting a war, we could lose half the city. Captain Price looked toward Roman. He has not started a war. Not yet. The words hung in the room. Caleb allowed the implication to settle. Roman was unstable. Roman was dangerous. Roman could no longer be trusted. Caleb had not needed to say any of it directly. Captain Lane stepped closer. And if we refuse, Caleb's smile was faint. Then we risk every crew beneath us because we are afraid to acknowledge what is in front of our eyes. Roman stood. The movement silenced the room. He straightened his jacket and looked down at the broken glass around his shoes. When he spoke, his voice no longer belonged to a grieving father. You always did reach for things before they belonged to you. Caleb turned. For the first time since entering the hospital, his expression slipped. Only for a second. Then concern returned. Roman, you are in shock. Am I? You just lost your son. Roman stepped over the broken glass. Caleb took one small step backward before stopping himself. You should not be discussing business. I was not discussing business. Roman's gaze moved toward the captains. You were. Caleb lowered his voice. I am trying to protect what is yours. You announced yourself as my replacement before my son's body was cold. I said temporary control. You never meant temporary. Caleb's eyes hardened. You are not thinking clearly. Roman almost smiled. That has been your favorite hope for 3 weeks. The captains looked between them. Caleb glanced toward the double doors. "Hale said your son is dead." Roman's face became still. "Hale said exactly what I told him to say." The private corridor doors opened. Grace entered first. Every face in the waiting room turned toward her. She wore a fresh set of dark blue scrubs. A bruise marked one side of her face. Her hair had been tied back again. Behind her, Dr. Evelyn Shaw guided a neonatal transport incubator into the room. Noah lay inside, alive. His monitor showed a steady heartbeat. The sound filled the waiting room, a soft, regular rhythm. Caleb stared at the incubator. The color left his face. His mouth opened, but no words came. Roman crossed the room and placed one hand on the clear wall beside Noah. The baby moved beneath the blanket. Captain Reed stepped closer. "He is alive." Grace looked at him. "He is stable." The contaminated nutrition was removed before the damage became irreversible. Caleb looked toward Roman. "This is some kind of trick." Roman turned. "Yes." Caleb's eyes moved from Noah to Hale's empty place near the doors. "Hale told us he died. Hale was following orders." "Whose orders? Mine." Caleb took another step back. His heel touched the broken glass. Roman looked toward Daniel. Daniel opened the consultation room door. 2 guards brought Hale into the waiting room. His wrist was secured against his chest. Sweat covered his forehead. Caleb stared at him. Hale could not hold his gaze. "What did you do?" Caleb asked. Hale said nothing. Caleb's voice sharpened. "What did you tell them?" Roman removed a small recorder from his pocket. "The truth." He pressed play. Hale's recorded voice filled the room. "My clinic was failing. Caleb had the financial records. He offered me $2 million and threatened my daughter. No one moved." The confession continued. Hale described the replacement labels, the missing security footage, the contaminated nutrition bags, and the altered medical records. Caleb looked toward the captains. "He is lying." Roman allowed the recording to continue. "Caleb told me the child had to die before Roman returned to the organization." Captain Cole's expression changed. The confession reached Claire. He said the bombing was supposed to kill both of them, Claire and the baby. Caleb moved. His hand slipped inside his coat. 4 weapons appeared before his fingers reached the grip. Reed aimed at his chest. Cole aimed at his head. Lane and Burke covered the space behind him. Caleb froze. Daniel stepped forward and removed Caleb's pistol. No one lowered their weapon. Roman stood beside Noah's incubator. Grace remained on the opposite side, one hand near the access port. Caleb looked at Roman. "You believe this Roman's voice was quiet? I heard you in the stairwell." Caleb turned toward Grace. His eyes settled on the bruise across her cheek. "You." Grace said nothing. Caleb looked back at Roman. "She manipulated you. You poisoned my son. Hale poisoned him. You supplied the compound. You have the word of a frightened doctor and a nurse who wants your money." Roman crossed the distance between them. Grace watched the tension in his shoulders. He stopped inches from Caleb. "She refused my money." Caleb's mouth tightened. Roman continued. "She refused my protection. She refused to let me kill Hale. She stood between my gun and the man who tried to murder her because she understood what I was too angry to see." Roman leaned closer. "You should have been more afraid of her." Caleb looked around the room. The captains still held their weapons. He changed his approach. The panic disappeared. Resentment took its place. "You think this makes you strong?" Roman's eyes narrowed. Caleb laughed once. "You have spent 3 weeks hiding in a hospital while the rest of us kept your empire alive. My son was dying, and everything stopped because Roman Blackwell was in pain." Caleb looked toward the captains. "You all saw it. Meetings canceled. decisions delayed, territory ignored. He chose one child over hundreds of men who depend on this family. Reed's weapon remained steady. Caleb continued. I did what needed to be done. Grace felt the room change. Caleb was no longer denying everything. He was justifying it. Roman heard it too. What needed to be done? Roman asked. Caleb looked at him. You were changing the organization for Claire. Roman's face became unreadable. You closed profitable routes because she did not like what moved through them. You pushed money into legitimate companies. You began talking about exits, trusts, schools. She wanted a future for our son. She wanted to make you weak. No. Caleb's voice rose. She wanted to turn you into a man who asked permission before he acted. Roman stepped closer. Caleb did not retreat this time. I protected this family while you played husband, Caleb said. I took the calls you refused. I cleaned up the men you trusted. I stopped wars before you knew they were coming. You were my underboss. I was the reason you survived long enough to become a father. Roman's eyes hardened. You wanted my chair. I earned it. You could have challenged me. Caleb gave a bitter smile. And lose. The answer settled across the room. Captain Grant lowered his gaze. Caleb looked at the men around him. Roman inherited loyalty because of his name. I built mine in blood. Reed spoke without lowering his weapon. You murdered a pregnant woman. Caleb looked at him. I removed an influence that was destroying the organization. Grace felt Roman's control fracture. His hand moved toward Caleb's throat. She stepped forward. Roman. He stopped. Caleb saw it. A smile touched his mouth. There it is, he said. She speaks, and the great Roman Blackwell obeys. Roman turned his head slightly toward Grace. She stood beside Noah's incubator, calm, despite the men and guns around her. Roman looked back at Caleb. No, she reminds me that my son is watching. Caleb laughed. He cannot even see you. He will. The answer carried more force than a shout. Roman stepped away from Caleb. Captain Reed looked toward him. What is your judgment? Caleb's confidence disappeared. Thomas. Reed did not look at him. Caleb tried another name. Marcus, you know what Roman has become. You were at the Chelsea meeting. You said we needed leadership. Lane's face tightened. I said we needed Roman back. He was never coming back. He is standing in front of you. Caleb looked around the room. No one lowered a weapon. His breath became uneven. Roman, we are blood. Roman looked at him for a long time. He remembered two boys stealing whiskey from his father's office. He remembered Caleb dragging him behind a car when gunfire erupted outside a restaurant. He remembered Claire standing in their bedroom telling him that Caleb's loyalty always seemed strongest when people were watching. Roman had defended him. He had told Claire that some bonds were older than suspicion. Now Noah's heartbeat sounded behind him. Roman's voice became quiet. My brother died the night Claire's car exploded. Caleb's face changed. Roman, you watched me bury her. I made a mistake. A mistake is trusting the wrong man. Roman looked toward Noah. You made my son starve in a room filled with food. Caleb's composure collapsed. I never touched him. You found a coward willing to do it for you. Roman turned toward Daniel. Remove him. Caleb resisted as Daniel's men seized his arms. No. Roman, listen to me. Roman did not answer. Caleb struggled harder. We can fix this. Roman looked at him. There is nothing left to fix. Caleb's voice rose as the guards dragged him toward the service corridor. You need me. The captains do not know the accounts. They do not know the agreements I made. Daniel stopped near the doorway. Roman spoke without raising his voice. Take him somewhere my son will never hear his name again. Caleb stared at him. The fear in his face was finally real. "Roman, please." The service doors closed between them. His voice disappeared behind the steel. No one in the waiting room moved for several seconds. Then Roman turned toward the captains. "If any man here believes Caleb was right, speak now." Silence answered him. Roman looked at each of them. One by one. Captain Reed lowered his weapon. Caleb broke the family oath when he targeted Claire. Captain Cole lowered his next. He broke it again when he touched the air. The other captains followed. Reed stepped toward Roman. "You have my loyalty." Roman's gaze remained cold. "I do not want words today." Reed nodded. "Then you will have actions." Roman looked toward the broken table. "The Chelsea routes will be reviewed by Daniel. No retaliation without my approval. Every account Caleb controlled is frozen before noon." Captain Price took out his phone. Roman continued. "Any man loyal to Caleb can leave the city before sunset. If he remains after that, he answers to me." The captains began moving. Orders left the room in quiet voices. Within minutes, the waiting room became a command center. Grace watched Roman reclaim control without shouting. He had not forgotten Noah. He kept one hand resting against the incubator while speaking. When the last captain left, Hale remained beneath guard near the wall. He looked at Grace. "You said federal investigators." Roman turned toward him. Hale flinched. Grace stepped closer. "The evidence goes to the hospital board, state medical authorities, and federal investigators." Hale nodded quickly. Roman looked at her. "He deserves worse. He will lose his license, his clinic, his reputation, and his freedom. He tried to kill you." Grace touched the bruise on her cheek. "He failed." Roman's expression remained hard. Grace lowered her voice. "You gave me your word." The room became quiet again. Roman looked toward Noah. The infant shifted beneath his blanket. Roman drew a slow breath. Then he faced Daniel. "Call our attorney. The original evidence is copied before it leaves this building. Hale is turned over with the confession, financial records, toxicology results, and security logs." Hale's knees nearly gave way. Roman moved toward him. "You wanted $2 million. Hale lowered his eyes. "You will spend the rest of your life remembering what it cost." 2 hospital security officers arrived with members of the board and an attorney. Grace handed over the evidence personally. She watched every container receive a new seal. Every signature was documented. Every copy was accounted for. Hale was escorted away without his white coat. Hospital employees gathered at the far end of the corridor. Some looked shocked. Others looked ashamed. Jenna Cole stood among them with tears in her eyes. Grace met her gaze and nodded once. Jenna had helped reveal the truth. That mattered. When the corridor finally emptied, only Roman, Grace, Dr. Shaw, Daniel, and Noah remained. Roman looked at Daniel. "Handle the captains." Daniel understood. He left without another word. Shaw checked Noah's monitor and adjusted the oxygen level. "He needs to return to the recovery suite," she said. Grace nodded. Roman walked beside the incubator as they moved through the private corridor. No guards surrounded them now. No captains. No doctors hiding secrets. Only the quiet sound of wheels against the hospital floor. Inside the recovery room, Grace opened the access port and checked Noah's skin temperature. Roman stood on the other side. "Can I touch him?" "Yes." He placed one hand against Noah's back. Noah's fingers moved near his face. Roman watched him. "He is breathing better. A little. Is the poison gone? His body is still recovering. We need to watch his organs closely." Roman nodded. He did not ask for guarantees. Grace noticed the restraint. Shaw left to review the next laboratory results. Roman and Grace remained beside the incubator. The room was dim, Morning light had begun spreading across the Charles River beyond the window. Roman looked at the bruise on Grace's face. "You should have told me where you were going. You would have followed me." "Yes, with 6 armed men." "2." Grace looked at him. "4 at most." A small smile touched her mouth. Roman stared at it as if he had forgotten people could smile in the same room as him. Then his expression softened. "You saved him. We removed the poison. You found it. I noticed a mark. You stood in front of Hale. You stood in front of my gun. You stood in front of Caleb." Grace looked down at Noah. He needed someone to. Roman reached toward her. His hand stopped before touching her face. The hesitation mattered. Grace lifted her eyes. Roman waited. She moved closer. He gently touched the uninjured side of her cheek. His thumb rested near her jaw. "I do not know what I owe you," he said. "You do not owe me anything. I owe you everything. That is too much to place on another person." Roman looked toward Noah. "He is my world. I know. And you kept him in it." Grace felt the weight of his gaze. She placed one hand over his. "I did my job." "No." His voice lowered. "You did what every powerful person in this hospital was too proud, too frightened, or too careless to do." Grace did not answer. Roman moved closer. The space between them became almost nothing. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. Part of her wanted him to. The other part remembered Claire's photograph on his phone, the funeral still fresh in his voice, and the child fighting beside them. Grace lowered his hand gently. "Stay with Noah." Roman's eyes searched hers. She expected disappointment. Instead, he nodded. Grace moved to the other side of the incubator. Roman remained beside his son. Noah opened his eyes for several seconds. His small hand reached through the blanket. Roman placed one finger against his palm. Noah closed around it. The monitor continued its steady rhythm. Roman bowed his head until his forehead rested against the clear wall. Grace stood close enough to hear him whisper, "You are safe." Noah's fingers tightened. Roman looked across the incubator at Grace. She held his gaze. Outside the window, Boston moved beneath the morning light, unaware that an empire had nearly changed hands inside a hospital waiting room. Inside, Noah continued breathing. For Roman, that sound was enough. For the first time in 3 weeks, Roman Blackwell left the hospital without believing he was abandoning his son. He returned before sunrise. Noah had gained less than an ounce. Grace called it progress. Roman called it proof. The days that followed were quiet, but difficult. The poison had left Noah weak. His blood sugar shifted without warning, and his liver needed time to recover. Roman learned that survival did not always arrive as a dramatic rescue. Sometimes it was a number moving upward by a fraction or a monitor staying silent for 1 more hour. Roman remained beside the incubator through all of it. He stopped bringing syndicate files into the room. He stopped taking calls while Noah was awake. When the captains needed a decision, Daniel brought Roman into the private waiting room. The meetings were brief. No shouting, no threats. Caleb's accounts were frozen within hours. The men closest to him were questioned. Several disappeared from Boston before sunset. Others arrived at Roman's office with information, hoping the truth would earn mercy. Roman listened. He did not forgive, but he did not allow anger to pull him away from Noah again. Grace noticed. She noticed everything. On Noah's 12th day of recovery, Roman arrived carrying a small black bag. Grace looked at it. "What is that, a diaper bag?" She stared at him. Roman set it beside the chair. It was the only one in the store without animals printed on it. "You went into a store. I own stores." That was not my question. Roman removed a folded blanket, 2 bottles, a packet of wipes, and 3 shirts that were far too large for Noah. Grace lifted one. "This will fit him next year." The woman said babies grow quickly. She saw you coming. Roman looked toward the incubator. He will grow into it. The certainty in his voice stopped her from laughing. Grace folded the shirt and returned it to the bag. Yes, she said. He will. Noah left the intensive care unit 6 weeks later. The nurses gathered near the elevator as Grace carried him in a transport seat. He had gained weight, though he remained smaller than other infants his age. His cheeks had begun to round. His skin held the warm color Roman had spent weeks waiting to see. Roman stood beside Grace with one hand resting on the seat handle. Daniel waited near the elevator with 2 guards. Grace looked at them. No armed men in the nursery. Roman glanced toward Daniel. They stay downstairs. No rifles in the house. They are not rifles. Grace gave him a look. Roman sighed. They stay downstairs. The elevator doors opened. As they moved through the lobby, hospital, employees turned to watch. Some recognized Roman. Most recognized Noah. The story of the poisoned infant had spread through the hospital despite every attempt to contain it. Hale had been arrested. State investigators had taken over part of the neonatal floor. The medical board had suspended his license before the first hearing. Jenna Cole remained at St. Catherine. Her testimony had protected her career and exposed the broken pharmacy procedures Hale had exploited. Grace had testified for 6 hours. Roman had waited outside the hearing room the entire time. He never entered. She had told him not to. He listened. Outside the hospital, the morning was bright and cold. Roman stopped beside the vehicle. For a man who had faced gunfire without hesitation, the sight of Noah's seat inside the car seemed to terrify him. Grace noticed the way his hand tightened around the door. He is secure, she said. Roman checked the straps again. You already checked them. I'm checking your work. You watched me do it. I watched you pull the strap like you were securing cargo at the docks. Roman looked offended. Grace leaned into the car and adjusted the blanket near Noah's shoulder. He needs to breathe. Roman stepped closer. Their arms touched. Neither moved away immediately. Then Noah made a small sound. Grace straightened. Roman's attention returned to his son. Come with us, he said. I am not his nurse anymore. That was not what I asked. Grace looked toward the hospital entrance. For 6 weeks, every part of their relationship had existed beneath fluorescent lights. Fear had bound them together before either of them understood what else was forming. Outside the hospital, the feeling was harder to name. I will visit, she said. When Roman, a day is not an answer. Grace smiled despite herself. Sunday, he nodded once. 4 o'clock. I did not give you a time. You have one now? Grace closed the car door. Do not make me regret saving your son. Roman looked through the window at Noah. That would be impossible. Sunday became part of their lives. Grace arrived at 4 and found Roman standing in the kitchen of his Beacon Hill home with a bottle warmer in one hand and an instruction manual in the other. The house had once been designed for quiet dinners, formal meetings, and people who never stayed long enough to leave anything behind. Now bottles stood beside crystal glasses. White cloths covered the backs of expensive chairs. A bassinet occupied the center of Roman's library. Noah had transformed the house without understanding what a house was. Roman handed Grace the instruction manual. This machine is defective. Grace pressed one button. The warmer began to hum. Roman looked at it. It did not do that before. You had not turned it on. I had. You turned on the light beside it. Roman stared at the warmer as if it had insulted him. Grace laughed. It was the first time he heard her laugh outside the hospital. The sound changed the room. Roman looked at her longer than necessary. Grace noticed. She looked down at Noah. He needs to eat. Roman watched her lift the baby. Noah settled against her chest with immediate familiarity. His eyes opened and fixed on her face. "He remembers you," Roman said. "I told you babies remember voices. He calms down when you enter. So do you." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Roman became still. Grace focused on the bottle. Noah drank slowly. Roman sat across from her. "Is that a problem?" She looked up. "What that?" "I calm down when you enter." Grace met his eyes. "It depends on what you expect from me. The truth. You may not always like it. I rarely do. That has not stopped me." "No." A faint smile touched his mouth. "That is one of the reasons." Grace did not ask what the others were. Not then. The months passed with the quiet discipline of recovery. Noah saw respiratory specialists and feeding therapists. Roman attended every appointment and kept a precise notebook of feeding amounts, sleep patterns, and changes in Noah's breathing. Grace joined some appointments after Roman asked. She refused payment each time he offered it. At the hospital, the investigation continued. Hale pleaded guilty to medical fraud, tampering with medication, attempted murder, and conspiracy. His private clinic was seized. His medical license was permanently revoked. He provided investigators with financial records linking Caleb to offshore payments and the purchase of the compound used against Noah. The bombing investigation reopened. A mechanic connected to Caleb's shipping company was arrested in Rhode Island. Under questioning, he admitted placing the device beneath Claire's vehicle after being told the target was Roman. The admission did not change the result. Claire remained dead. Roman sat alone in his study when Daniel delivered the confession. Grace found him there later that evening. She had come to check on Noah. The baby was asleep upstairs with a nurse Roman had hired after Grace approved her credentials. Roman stood beside the window with a glass of whiskey he had not touched. Grace entered without knocking. "Daniel said you received news." Roman did not turn. "They found the man who placed the bomb." Grace waited. "He claims he thought I would be in the vehicle. Do you believe him? It does not matter. It matters to you." Roman looked at the city beyond the glass. "I spent months believing Claire died because she was near me." Grace moved closer. "Now you know she died because Caleb wanted to take everything you loved. That is not better." "No." Roman finally looked at her. There was no rage in his face, only exhaustion. "I trusted him more than I trusted her. You trusted the history you had with him. I ignored what she saw. You cannot change that." His eyes hardened. "I can change many things. Not this." The truth hurt him. Grace did not soften it. Roman looked down at the glass in his hand. "What do I do with that?" "Remember her honestly." He looked at Grace. "Not as the woman you failed. Not as the reason you became angry. Remember what she wanted for Noah. Remember the parts of you she believed could become better." Roman's voice lowered. "You speak as if you knew her. I know what she left behind." From upstairs, Noah began to cry. Roman placed the untouched whiskey on the table. He went to his son. Grace watched him leave. A few months earlier, he might have stayed with the glass and sent someone else. Now he climbed the stairs before the second cry. 8 months after the bombing, St. Catherine opened the Claire Blackwell Center for Infant Care. Roman funded the construction, but Grace wrote the conditions. The center would operate independently. No member of the Blackwell organization would control hiring, treatment, or research. Every high-risk infusion would require 2 verified signatures. Storage rooms would be monitored continuously. Nutrition bags would use tamper seals that revealed any puncture or alteration. Roman signed every condition. At the opening ceremony, reporters filled the hospital courtyard while Noah slept in Roman's arms. The hospital board introduced Grace as the center's clinical director. She had initially refused the position. Roman had not argued. Instead, he asked an independent committee to review every candidate. Grace ranked first. When she confronted him, he handed her the report. "You did not give me the job," she said. "No. You arranged the process. I arranged for them to stop pretending they did not already know who should lead it." Grace accepted after reading every page of the contract. During the ceremony, she spoke about overlooked details: a temperature change, a broken seal, and a nurse willing to ask one more question. Roman listened from the front row. Claire's name shone in silver letters behind Grace. For once, Roman allowed the public to see what grief had built instead of what it had destroyed. After the guests left, Grace found him in the empty center. Noah was awake against his shoulder. Roman held out a small box. Grace looked at it. "What is that? Not jewelry?" "That is exactly what someone says before giving jewelry." She opened the box. Inside rested a set of keys. Grace closed it immediately. "No." Roman frowned. "You have not heard what they open." "I do not need to." "An apartment overlooking the river." "No, it is close to the hospital." "No, it is in your name." Grace placed the box in his hand. "That makes it worse." Roman looked down at the keys. "I am trying to thank you. You already did. You listened when I told you to give Hale to the investigators. You stopped carrying a gun into the neonatal floor. You show up for Noah. That is not repayment. It is not supposed to be." Roman's expression became serious. "I do not know another way." Grace softened. "Learn one." He studied her face. "What way would you accept dinner?" Roman blinked. "A dinner. One dinner. No guards at the table. No gifts. No business. Is this pity? No. Gratitude? No." Roman stepped closer. "What is it?" Grace looked at Noah between them. "A beginning if you can behave like a normal man for 2 hours." Roman's mouth curved. "I have never been a normal man." "Then consider it training." Their first dinner lasted 4 hours at a small restaurant in the North End. Grace objected when she realized Roman had rented the entire place, but they soon spoke about everything except the hospital. Grace told him about growing up in Worcester with a mother who worked nights and a younger brother who collected broken radios. Roman told her about his father teaching him to read financial ledgers before he was old enough to drive. She asked when he had first killed someone. He answered honestly. The truth did not frighten her. It did not impress her either. That unsettled him more. When he drove her home, he walked her to the door. He did not try to kiss her. Grace noticed that too. Weeks later, they stood in Claire's memorial garden outside the hospital. Noah slept against Roman's chest in a carrier. The evening air smelled of rain and cut grass. Roman looked toward the stone bearing Claire's name. I kept my distance because I did not know what this was. Grace stood beside him. "And now I know gratitude is part of it." She waited. "So is fear. Of me. Of needing someone who can leave." Grace looked at him. Roman's voice became quieter. "Claire was the life I had. I will not turn you into a replacement for her. I would never agree to be one. I know." He moved closer, careful not to wake Noah. "You are the reason I believe there may still be a life after her." Grace felt the truth of it settle between them. "If there is," she said, "it comes with rules." Roman almost smiled. "Of course it does. No threats in my hospital." "Agreed. No armed men in the nursery. They stay downstairs. No lying because you think the truth is dangerous." Roman's smile disappeared. "That one may be difficult." then practice. He looked at her for a long moment. Anything else? Grace stepped closer. I do not belong to you. Roman lifted one hand, but did not touch her. No. His voice was calm. But I would like the chance to belong with you. Grace closed the distance. She kissed him slowly. There was no desperation in it, no debt, no promise made because either of them was afraid to be alone. Roman's hand rested lightly against her face. Noah shifted between them. Grace pulled back. Roman looked down at his son. He has poor timing. Grace smiled. He is a Blackwell. 1 year after the bombing, Roman brought Noah to Claire's grave. The morning was quiet. Noah stood unsteadily between Roman's hands, his small shoes pressing into the grass. Grace carried white roses. She placed them beside the headstone, then stepped away. Roman crouched beside his son. This is your mother, he said. Noah touched the stone with one hand. She chose your name. She talked to you before you were born. She believed you would change everything. Roman's voice broke. He did not hide it. You survived. Noah looked up at him. Roman rested his forehead against his son's. I will make sure you know her. Grace waited several feet away. When Roman stood, Noah reached toward her. She lifted him into her arms. Roman joined them. For a moment, the three of them stood before Claire's name beneath the pale Boston sky. Roman looked at Grace. You saw the mark no one else saw. Grace looked down at Noah. No. I saw a baby trying to tell us something. Noah laughed and reached for Roman. Roman took his son's hand. Together they walked toward the waiting car. Behind them, Claire's roses moved softly in the morning wind. Roman still commanded an empire. But when Noah called out and Grace turned toward him, Roman followed them without hesitation.